Okay, we're ready for 4.4 and 4.5. I'm going to go ahead and do those two sections in the same video because they're so closely related. 4.4 deals with triangle congruency shortcuts. You're going to want to make sure you take good notes on this section. Okay, so C26 is the angle side angle conjecture. And what that says, that if two angles and the side in between them of one triangle are congruent to two angles and the side in between them of another triangle, then the two triangles are congruent. So notice that this is two angles and the side in between them. So these two angles are congruent to these two angles and the side in between them are congruent. So that means that ABC is congruent to XYZ. And remember, the order that you put these in is very important because A is congruent to X, B is congruent to Y, C is congruent to Z, AC is congruent to XZ, and so on. So the order that you put your letters is super important. The next conjecture is the side angle congruency conjecture. And this one says if two angles and a non-included side of one triangle are congruent to the corresponding two angles and non-included side of another triangle, then the triangles are congruent. So if you look at this backwards, angle, side, because I could easily write this as angle, side. These are the same thing. These two angles are congruent to these two angles, and the non-included side, this would be the included side. This is the non-included side, are also congruent. So then you have AS. ABC is congruent to XYZ because of side angle. We're going to have a lot of practice for this, these two sections in class, so never fear. Okay, the third one, C24, is side. If the three angles of a triangle are congruent to the three sides of another triangle, then the triangles are congruent. This is congruent to this, this is congruent to this, this is congruent to this. Therefore, those two triangles are congruent because of side. And then C25 is the final one in section 4.5, and it is side angle side. This one says that if two sides and the included angle of one triangle are congruent to two sides and the included angle of another triangle, then the triangles are congruent. So notice we have these two sides and the angle in between them. Side, and the angle in between them. If this is true, then ABC is congruent to XYZ because of side angle side. So now we're going to get into section 4.5, and we're going to look at, are there other triangle congruency conjectures? Okay, well, what about if all the angles, angle, what if all the angles are congruent to another triangle? Well, you can see in this picture that these angles are all congruent. This is congruent to that, that's congruent to this, and that's congruent to that. But as you can see, they are clearly not congruent triangles. One's much bigger than the other. These triangles are similar. This is a similarity conjecture, but not a congruency conjecture. But they are not congruent. Okay, this is my favorite one because I get to say ass in geometry. So angle side would be an angle and the next two sides. An angle and the next two sides. So the way you're going to remember that this is not a congruency conjecture is because you don't get to make an ass out of yourself in geometry. Funny, right? Okay, well, what about side-side angle? Well, isn't that just ass backwards? God, I'm funny.